Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, welcome. Listening to the opening statements, it sounds like we're ships passing in the night. Each has their version of reality, but facts are stubborn things. We know that CBP is facing unprecedented challenges today, and I applaud your efforts as well as the men and women who work with you, who are on the front lines of this challenge on a daily basis. It seems like this hearing, the initial premise of this hearing is about the effects of illegal immigration rather than the causes, but I hope to talk about both. I suspect the hearing will not primarily focus on the number of men, women, and children who are robbed, raped, and killed en route from their homes across our southern border. Senator Cruz, I know, has visited Valfurious, the checkpoint where in Brooks County, where one of the biggest problems that county has is the number of dead bodies of people who've died from exposure and the cost to local taxpayers to simply bury their bodies or their remains. And obviously CBP is overwhelmed by what President Obama called a humanitarian crisis in 2014. Today we see hashtags that call what the president and others have described as a fake emergency at the border. But in order to believe that there's a fake emergency at the border, you have to be blind to the facts or simply unwilling to listen. The vague suggestions we're hearing about some of the dealing with the causes of illegal immigration strike me as discussions we've had in the past about nation building in Central America. We all can empathize, as the chairman has said, with the plight of families who are subjected to violence and other threats in their home, but it can't be that a nation simply has open borders to the waves of humanity that come into our country that we've been seeing in recent months, or that Border Patrol, rather than dealing with the drugs and the human trafficking, are handing out diapers and juice boxes while the drug cartels take advantage of the fact that Border Patrol is not available to do their main job, which is law enforcement, because they're dealing with the humanitarian crisis of these children and family units. I feel particularly strongly about this topic because of where I live and the state I represent. We have 1,200 miles of common border with Mexico. I wonder how some of my other colleagues in the Senate and in the Congress would feel if there was a pipeline from Central America or Mexico directly into their state, and they had to deal at the city, the county, and the state level with the public safety and humanitarian crisis presented. I bet some of them would feel a little differently. Last week, the Border Patrol in the Rio Grande Valley arrested more than 1,300 illegal immigrants in a single day. As you know, Mr. Commissioner, CBP announced that more than 76,000 people crossed the border in February alone. 76,000 in 1 month. This is the largest monthly total in more than a decade. And I understand where my friend, the senator from California, says, well, the numbers of people detained are down from their million-plus high to roughly 400,000 people last year. But the main problem is the people, as the chairman has described, who basically have figured a way to thread the needle and exploit the vulnerabilities or the gaps in our asylum laws and to basically win at making their way permanently into the United States, never to be removed. This time last year, compared to this time last year, family unit apprehensions have increased 209% in the Rio Grande Valley sector. Family unit apprehensions have increased 497% in the Del Rio sector. And most staggering, in the El Paso sector, overall apprehensions have increased 434%, while family unit apprehensions have increased an incredible 1,639%. This is not a crisis, people say. This is not an emergency. This is not something that should generate our best efforts in good faith to work together on a bipartisan basis to address. I hear absolutely no suggestions from our Democratic friends on how to deal with the causes of these problems, but rather the focus seems to be on the hand that you've been dealt, along with your colleagues at CBP, dealing with people who have made their way a long way from their home and have been suffered from exposure and mistreatment by the very people to whom they've entrusted their lives, who have no interest in their welfare or their life other than the fact it generates money for them in their criminal enterprise. My understanding of that the actions surrounding the tragic deaths of the two migrant children we're focused on here late last year are currently under review by multiple agencies, and I look forward to seeing the results of these investigations and urge all of us to withhold judgment until they're complete. But let me just say, Mr. or Commissioner, I don't think that the Flores decision should be preserved. I don't think we should treat children and family units from non-contiguous countries any differently than we should treat children and family units coming from Mexico. That's what the current gaps in the law provide for, and that is the cause of the humanitarian crisis and the overwhelming of the capacity of the U.S. government to deal with this threat, not only from a humanitarian standpoint, but from a safety and security standpoint as well. Thank you.